This video is for business leaders who want to mix and match personalities in groups and get optimal or maximal results. So Dr. Benjamin Hardy claims that personality isn't, he has a book and it's called Personality Isn't Permanent. And in that book, he says, oh, well, personalities aren't fixed. They're not permanent. Well, I agree with him, but what personalities are is relatively stable over time. Unless there's some reason for a person's personality to change, it will change over a lifetime, over longer periods of time, but typically slowly, unless there's some sort of traumatic external event or some traumatic internal personal event. So in other words, personalities do change over time, but they're relatively stable and they normally don't change that fast. Because of this, you can take advantage of some things which are kind of important in a workplace, and that is by understanding personality types. When you want to assemble teams together and get the best results, you can do that better and get the results you're intending to get the targeted results by understanding personality types, or more accurately, personality traits. And I'll put a link right there about this, but the Ocean or Big Five personality traits are the only ones that are considered basically scientifically valid, or the article said something to the effect of science-wide consensus on a valid measure of personality, and that is the Ocean system. So you've probably heard of different ones, Myers-Briggs and that, but sort of the science-wide consensus of any sort of personality science that is accepted sort of across the board is the Ocean personality traits. Now these are, O means openness to novelty, or openness to novel experiences. Okay, so open to experience. Conscientiousness means what it sounds like, people who are less likely to be late, who tend to keep their promises, show up for appointments on time, things like that. Extroversion is how outgoing you are, obviously. Then there's agreeableness, and that is how agreeable you are, how not just necessarily how friendly you are, but how often you're inclined to agree with most people in most situations. That's, at least that's the way I'm going to express it. And neuroticism, which is by far the worst they could have chosen, but it does help you remember it. So neuroticism makes it sound like you're crazy, when in fact it's more like you're more emotionally responsive or sensitive. None of these traits, being high or low on any of them, are unto themselves negative. And that's one of the reasons it's dangerous to think of certain things. Even why I don't like that name is because it suggests, oh, you're a high neurotic, you must be nuts and irrational all the time. Not necessarily. So for many years, or in the many years I've been teaching English, I've noticed that groups, whether it's classes or whatever, classes, young kids, mature adults, senior adults, that classes or groups of people have collective personalities. And so it's interesting because it's not just as simple as everybody together makes a homogeneous personality, but it kind of does. That is, different extremes in these different traits will tend to average each other out. So if you have a high extrovert in the class, they can sort of raise the overall energy or outgoingness of the class because they are high energy, and it sort of gives social permission, social safety for other members of the group to be more extroverted. And the same is true the other way, that too many introverts or low extroverts will tend to make the class or the group much harder to share things, and usually much quieter and shyer. It's kind of interesting the way that works. And too many of either can make that a challenging situation. Too many extroverts and they all want to talk at the same time. So at the same time, too many introverts, I had a class many years ago, and it was one of the most collectively introverted groups of students I'd ever seen. And normally young kids are happy to sing. And this was like a Halloween class or something. So we're singing we're singing songs. And it was the only time I've ever had to sing in whisper. Oh, my monster. Oh. We literally had to sing in a whisper because we had an exaggerated average where almost everybody in the class was low on extroversion, and therefore nobody really wanted to sing. They enjoyed it, but we literally had to whisper sing to get them to do it. It was kind of an interesting experience. But also the collective personality is changed by the interactions between the different personality traits, and in particular, also the relationships, the existing relationships between members of the group. So I had a high-ranking student. This was at it's not a Fortune 500 company or anything, but a major company, a major national company, the head office. So this is the C-suite executives. Most of them were, at least. And one of them was much higher ranking than the rest of them. And it was interesting, though, because he was an extrovert, he was playful, he was outgoing, he was older, not the eldest, but one of the eldest members in the group. He was highest ranking, but he also had the weakest English. So it was interesting because he was in this group where normally he is the senior, the big boss of most of the members of this group. He became quite introverted, even though that's not his base personality, because he probably didn't want to be seen as lesser than them in something, which would be his English skill. And it actually took quite a bit of coaxing and assessment feedback to the group, which I was able to do. Fortunately, it was a very progressive company before he really started to try harder and risk. He felt more psychological safety, but it was interesting because despite his extroversion, his relationship with the other people in the room caused him to go in a different direction and to become more introverted and avoid trying and risking mistakes. So if you consider these 5 big personality traits, the openness, the conscientiousness, the extroversion, the agreeableness, and the neuroticism or sensitivity of members of the group, it can help you put people together in such a way where they complement one another rather than canceling each other out in a negative way. And if you have something that's a challenging or contentious or controversial decision to make, the right number of low agreeableness members could actually be a good thing, because low agreeable people, and I know this because I am a low agreeable in that trait, you have to give me a good reason to agree with you. I won't agree to go along with the group. I will tell people when I think they're full of shit. And that's a good thing, because if everybody agrees, then that means bad things happen in terms of the quality of things. There's nobody there to challenge, and low agreeableness people are challengers. So that's something you actually want in the room. That said, too many low agreeable people, and it could just be an argument, or nobody agrees on anything and everybody's trying to one up each other. So that's no good either. So the other one that I am actually high on is neuroticism. That means I am more likely to get annoyed or offended or have my feelings hurt. I'm more emotionally sensitive than, let's say, baseline. Again, none of this is bad, but knowing these things is really important. So I think the big 5 is brilliant, but what you really have to understand is, unfortunately, despite the fact that the framework itself is good, handwritten tests to type people or to give people these personality traits are notoriously unreliable. If I'm writing a job interview and I see, oh, okay, well, I know low agreeableness means you can't work good in groups, which is nonsense, but that's how it's going to come across. I can cheat. So it would be better to actually use the categories, but not in the way you think. Use them based on grouping people according to their behavior at work, their real openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism that other people, yourself or other people, have observed, and use those to form groups so that you can find a target mix, a collective personality trait pool, which will give you the best results. That's it for Crush It Club 137, Maximize Group Results. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.